welcome to this episode of The Manager's Corner. This HCAM series brings you department heads and committee chairs of the town structures that run the town of Hopkinton. Joining me today is our principal assessor, Bob Bushway. Thank you very much for being here, Bob.
Thanks for having me, Jim. Appreciate it.
Before we get to your position and what you do, let's just take a quick minute and talk about who you are, where you came from, and how you came to Hopkinton.
Sure, thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for having me in, and it's a great pleasure to talk to you as well as the folks at home. Anytime we can get the message across of what we do is always a great thing, because there's a lot of misconceptions about what we do and what we don't do. So basically my background is I grew up in the town of Walpole. I went to Walpole High School. I went on to get my degree at the University of Massachusetts in Boston. Always had an interest in real estate. Was a real estate broker for a few years, and then I got my appraisal license and did fee appraisal work for half a dozen years. Decided to get into the assessing world. Took a job with the city of Newton. Worked in Newton for 4 years. Enjoyed myself very much, but with a department of 18 people. To move along, I decided to look in other towns to be a head principal assessor.
Okay.
Landed in Hopkinton about 10 years ago. It was 10 years in July.
And here you are.
Here I am. I've enjoyed myself very much.
Excellent. All right. So now, what does the assessor do? What does your job entail?
Basically, our primary responsibility is to generate fair and equitable property assessments throughout the town. Right now, the total value of the town is roughly almost $3 billion. So
no kidding.
It's a lot of value to kind of track and keep track of.
Now, is that land, buildings, or things inside the buildings too?
Kind of all of the above. It's primarily real estate, which is the land and buildings, both exempt and taxable. We also are responsible for business personal property, which in a lot of small businesses and large, it's taxable on machinery and equipment, and in some cases furniture and fixtures. The table you're sitting at right now, the chair, the equipment in the studio.
This is a very cheap table. We got this at a yard sale about 5 years ago. Just kidding.
So there's quite a lot to it. And we do have consultants to help us with some of the personal property issues, because it's a whole different animal, if you will. It's a little different than real estate. So.
Right. Actually, now, no one's ever come to my home and inventoried the possessions that we own. Is that just kind of like a percentile thing?
No, we don't. That's a little different. Your own personal belongings are not taxable.
Oh, I see.
It's business personal property.
Okay.
So anything in your private home is not taxed. It's just the real estate.
Okay.
Land and buildings.
Okay. All right. So your job is to kind of get a handle on that.
Right.
And then, actually, we'll talk later about once you get that handle, what you do with that information. But can you tell us, like, how do you get the handle on that? And oftentimes, you know, the assessed value of our house will go up, or it'll go down, it'll go all around.
Right.
How do you look at that?
Okay, it's a good question. We do a lot of different things. Primarily, first of all, we try to get physically inspect as many houses as we can, because they change so often. Anytime there's a permit issued, anytime a property sells, anytime somebody appeals their value, we will come out. We do roughly 1,000 property inspections a year. We've got a small staff, but a very busy staff and a great staff. So fortunately, we're out inspecting houses all the time.
1,000 a year? That's almost like you must be out there every day.
Yeah, well, almost. Yeah, I mean, we probably do, on a good day, we can do 10 to 15 inspections every day.
Okay.
And then we have a computer program that we enter all the information in. Once we get the information in the computer, you know, we know the size of the house, because we run a tape measure along the outside of a house, just like a real estate appraiser will do. If you've ever had your house appraised, if you've gone to the bank for refinance, we could pretty much do the same thing, only we do mass appraisal. They're doing an individual appraisal. So once we get the physical characteristics of each house down, We then analyze the market, just like a real estate appraiser does. So we get the deeds in of all the properties in town, look at what they're selling for, look at the assessed value, and then we'll adjust the assessed value based on what properties are selling for. Now, obviously, not every house sells, but we pick a sample of all the houses that do sell, and that kind of gives us a trend of properties, of values going up, are they going down, are they staying the same?
You know, I kind of get this image of this huge war room where you have this map with all these, you know, houses and things. It must be a really big picture because there's how many, 5,000 houses in Hopkinton?
About 4,200 single-family homes.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thank goodness for computers because you know, we obviously work pretty heavily with Excel, and we have a proprietary software program that helps us generate values.
Okay.
So we do assessment to sale ratios constantly, and so we tweak our tables, our cost tables, so they fall in line. So the assessed value in the sale prices are reflective and equal.
Now, whenever I look at my assessment, it's oftentimes different than what I think I could get for my house were I to sell it. Can you, how does that happen?
That's a great point. A lot of people assume that their assessed value is today's market value. Oftentimes it isn't. Your assessed value is somewhat historical. In other words, the fiscal year 2010 values that we've just got preliminary certification on are values based on January 1st, 2009.
Oh, okay.
So we analyze calendar year 2008 sales to generate your assessed value. So here we are, almost, you know, late into this calendar year. So the assessment, when you get it in January, is already a year old, and it's based on sales that might have occurred almost 2 years ago. So in a very, you know, in a very fluid market, the assessment's not. If you open up your tax bill in January, right now property values are going down. Your assessment might look high based on what, you know, what it's worth today. But I want to stress to folks that it takes us a year or two to catch up with actual market value of today because we are looking back. It's not present day.
Okay. And when I look at mine, there are always two lines. There's the building and then there's the land.
Right.
Is there a reason? Because if I talk to my real estate agent, you know, I'll get like one number.
Exactly.
Is there a reason that you break that out?
There is. I mean, ideally we wouldn't, but we have to show it. It's a state guideline. On a single-family house, it's a little bit silly to put land and building because when you go to buy a property, you don't say, I'll give you $200,000 for the land and $200,000 for the house.
Right.
You say, I'll pay $400,000. So to put a land and building, I always tell people to focus on the value, the total value, and that's really the thing, especially on a single-family house.
Okay.
That's the thing you want to focus on.
Is this a yearly thing that you look at, or are you constantly upgrading or downgrading the value of the assessments throughout the year?
Well, we're always looking at properties, you know, 12 months a year, just to keep our values current. But we only adjust the value once a year.
Okay.
And that's done on the third quarter tax bill in January. Every 3 years, there's a major recertification, if you will, where the Department of Revenue sends a person out to look at all of our values and our cost tables, personal property, everything that we do in the office. And those values get certified every 3 years. However, about 5 years ago, they mandated that we change values on an annual basis because they're so fluid. They go up and down so quickly that years ago, people, you know, some towns would wait 3 years to do a revaluation, and values would either spike way up or spike way down, and that's not always the best way to go about it. So we adjust our values annually now.
When did you start doing that?
I believe it was 6 years ago where they started doing what they call interim year adjustments.
Okay.
So even though it's not a full-blown reassessment program, we still have to submit paperwork to the state to show that our values are in line.
Okay. Now, once I get my assessment, if I have an issue, if I think my house is not worth what it's being assessed for, what do I do?
Great question. We encourage people to call our office. We're more than happy to come out. A lot of times, we just, with a small staff and almost, 5,000 homes when you consider condominiums and two families, we can't get into every single house. So we may have things overstated in your house. You might have taken your in-ground. A lot of people will fill in an in-ground pool. We might still have that pool on the property record card. So we encourage people, if they think their value is, if they think they're getting overassessed, to call us. We'll come out and do a reinspection of the house, and if it's within the abatement period, we can adjust that value and issue an abatement.
Okay.
Keep in mind, however, that if we do go out, and sometimes we'll pick up information that we don't have on the property record card.
Oh, so, you finished off your basement.
That happens. So yeah, three things can happen. The value can go up, it can go down, it could stay the same. We just want to get it right. If we need to make an adjustment, we can do that.
Okay. And do you look at, I don't know, I mean, if somebody put a new roof on the house, or somebody, I don't know, put paneling in their room or something like that? I mean, is it a judgment kind of thing?
Well,
or what kind of guidelines?
Put it this way: routine maintenance has to be done.
Okay.
If you need a new roof, you're going to replace it.
Yeah.
Same with your heating system. Routine maintenance, everybody, at least in this town, pretty much takes care of their house. We do get building permits. Anytime a permit's taken out for a roof, a shed, a pool, remodel a kitchen, we try to go out just to update the record card. If there may be two houses, they're both 50 years old. One house hasn't had many updates at all, and it has a lot of deferred maintenance. The house right next to it, guess what? They might have put $100,000, $200,000 into the inside of the house. So those two houses are going to sell for very different prices. And those are the things that we try to separate when it comes to valuing their house, because we want it to be fair for both taxpayers.
By the way, I compliment you. Deferred maintenance is a very polite term.
Well, yeah.
All right. So now we know how much our house is worth and why. Now, how come the value may fluctuate and the value may go down, but the taxes never go down?
Exactly. That's another great question. And that's something that we try to talk to taxpayers about all the time. A lot of people, most people understand it, but it's always good because they don't see their tax bill all that often. I mean, they don't maybe understand the value and how the taxes work. Basically, as long as the town budget goes up a little bit, or a lot for that matter, you're going to pay more in property taxes. I tell people I could cut your value in half. Let's say property values really tanked, and instead of your house being worth $500,000, they all get cut 50%. Well, guess what happens? The tax rate just goes up, because the tax levy is the tax levy, and the town still needs to raise a certain amount of money for the services that the town provides. So
okay. And
values go down, the tax rate typically goes up.
Okay, and where does the tax levy come from?
Well, the tax levy is basically the taxpayers at town meeting vote the town budget. The town can't raise more than 2.5% from the previous year. There's a few exceptions to that. There's new growth that gets added to Proposition 2.5. And there's also debt exclusions, which a lot of people kind of forget about. But that's about another little over $3 million, which is added to the tax levy above and beyond the 2.5. And those are things like the high school, the police station, the fire station, big projects.
Yep.
Where it's similar to an override. However, once that debt is paid off, now it comes off the tax levy. Or an override, once the folks vote in an override, it stays on the tax levy permanently.
Okay. All right, so town meeting sets the tax levy, how much money the town needs to run. You say how much each individual, what their percentage of that would be, kind of, right?
Yeah, the town meeting basically, if you think of it as a big pie, the pie is the budget. What the assessors do is slice up that pie. And by that I mean we set each individual property value, and we try to do it fair and equitable.
Okay.
And we do that by analyzing sales on commercial and industrial properties. we actually ask for income and expense statements. So we get an idea what rental income is, you know, what the income stream is on income property.
Okay.
So we set value that way as well.
Okay. Now I know this might be a little bit out of your purview, but this year it seems to be something interesting going on where, you know, with the budget problems that the state is having and talking about, you know, cutting aid to the towns and stuff, there's been talk by the selectmen about, you know, adjusting it kind of in midstream what's happening. If the tax levy is set at town meeting and then you have your assessments in and that gets all divided out, do you know, can you describe like what's happening right now that we're talking about?
Well, yes. I mean, the selectmen, they take a look at what the spending is. What a lot of times in May, we set goals, if you will, based on what we think the state aid is going to be, because the town budget is comprised of a lot of different components, most of it being property taxes. Some of it is state aid. So when state aid gets cut midstream, we have to scramble and figure out how we're going to meet the budget requirements that were voted at town meeting.
Okay.
Now, once the tax rate is set in late November, there can be no more changes. You can't go and revote issues or budgets. What can be done, though, is after the tax rate is set, it's my understanding that things can be shifted. In other, the money can be raised, but can be shifted around a little bit to compensate for some budget changes midstream.
I see. Okay. So town meeting says how much we need. You say how much each person's share of that would be. Who puts two together and sends everything out?
Well, we all work together pretty closely. We have a finance team at Town Hall. It's comprised of the finance director, myself, the Board of Assessors, the tax collector, the town clerk, town manager. We all work very closely together and work on what's called a tax recapitulation, which is a big word for basically it's sort of like a large tax return that the town is required to fill out each year.
Okay. So it's kind of like what we do, just multiplied by 5,000.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty. It takes a large effort by a half a dozen folks to pull all the paperwork together. It's now done on what's called the Department of Revenue Gateway, which is all web-based. It's a lot easier than it was 10 years ago when I came on board. So I've seen a lot of changes in that regard. So we actually all log on to a state website, username and password, and it's called Gateway, and we can enter a lot of the tax information in directly, and then the state receives it instantaneously and can review it in Boston or in Worcester or wherever their review happens to be a review process. So that's cut down on a lot of paperwork and time.
And then they send you back like this is okay, it's approved kind of thing.
Exactly.
What kind of turnaround times you get on that?
It's usually very good. We've been lucky, knock on wood. We've never been late, sending out a tax bill, and that's probably one of our most important jobs is getting the tax bill out on time.
Yeah.
If the third quarter tax bill doesn't go out by January 1st, and it's sent out late, instead of being due February 1st, folks have until May 1st to make that payment. So you could see it would cause quite a bit of turmoil within the town. If tax bills didn't get paid until May 1st.
Has that ever happened?
Not since I've been here, and I'm hoping it doesn't.
Okay. Now, do you have any information for the viewers about if they have an issue with their taxes? Is there any type of help that they could get?
Absolutely. Again, as we said earlier, if they have an issue, if they think they're overassessed, call us. We'll come out and take a second look at the house. We'll do an analysis fairly quickly to see if there's some merit. Another thing, a lot of people complain about their taxes, and not necessarily their property value, but just their taxes in general are way too high, especially some of the elderly folks in town. We offer exemptions for people, and we can maybe give out the phone number to the office.
Okay.
And we welcome people to call the office if they think they may qualify. But basically, there are senior exemptions. There are income and asset guidelines So there's kind of a litmus test for that. But they can call the office and get all the details on that. We also offer veterans exemptions for certain types of veterans. There's there's half a dozen blind taxpayers who will get an exemption. So
now, are those put in place by the townspeople of Hopkinton, or is that a state-level thing?
They're state-level statutory guidelines. The state reimburses the town a certain percentage, not fully for them, but a good percentage of the exemptions are reimbursed back to the town, which is a really good thing.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, our time is just beginning to get a little bit short here, so I'd like to mention your website, because you have a lot of really good information on your website. What kind of stuff will we see if we go there?
Well, there's a lot of questions and answers. Some of the things we've just covered in the short time we've had. Other things, it gets into more details on the exemption. So for most folks who do have internet access, they can look at their property value online. They can also get a lot of questions and answered. Spend a few minutes if you have some time. It may prevent a phone call. You're always welcome to make a phone call to the office, but there's my email. Folks want to email me or anybody on my staff, they can do that as well. But it gets into a lot more detail of some of the things we've touched upon today.
Do you see anything new coming down the pike that might be offered on the website?
I'm hoping that with the technology that's available, we offer at some point in time, hopefully in the near future, that folks are going to be able to log on and actually see their property record card online.
Okay. What is a property record card?
Property record card is all the detail that that we have for their house, the square footage of the house, the number of rooms, the bedroom count, the kitchen quality, the bathroom quality, any finished basement, their lot size, some generic things, buyer and seller information. So basically, hopefully they'll be able to do, just like right now, a lot of people do their banking from home, they'll be able to look at their property assessment.
Yeah. Does it have history, too, if you buy a home from somebody who bought it from somebody else?
It does have some limited history. It's somewhat limited because it's a web-based application.
Yeah.
They can always come into our office. There's a little more detail on our counter terminal because it just has a little more robust internet, a little more information.
Okay.
But the internet will be kind of a scaled-down version of that. So we're hoping for that. We also have GIS that we're launching internally within the town hall. GIS is Geographic Information Systems, where people can look at their lot lines and as well as any other in town. There's also an aerial overlay. There's zoning overlays. So we're just really getting into our GIS applications. Obviously, like everything else, it does cost money, so we're sensitive to that. But we're rolling that in slowly and hope to advance that as the months and years go along.
Now, has your information encapsulated the economic downturn that we went through about a year or so, or is that what you're going through now?
It has, Jim. We've basically, overall, we've lowered single-family assessments. I think this will be the third or fourth year in a row where the average single-family assessed value has gone down considerably. It's under 400,000. It topped out at about 550,000 3 or 4 years ago. I think now it's about 480,000. So values continue to trickle down.
Yeah.
I expect that will be the trend for at least another year, and I think everybody's hoping for an economic turnaround.
Right. Okay. Well, this has been really informative. If there's any final thoughts that you would like to leave with the viewers, we'll have your phone number. We'll have the website address where people can get in touch with you with their own
great
personal questions.
No, I think it's been a great forum. So we're always anxious to talk about how the taxes work, how values work, how they relate. So to be able to do it on a forum like this is a big plus, and I appreciate you having me in.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for the work you do.
Thank you.
All right, Bob.
All right.
All right, and thank you very much for tuning in for this episode of the Manager's Corner. I hope you tune in for future episodes where we talk with other department heads and committee chairs and keep you informed of the people who are helping to run town government. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you. In the animal kingdom, all smiles are not created equal, but they take what they get. Luckily, you don't have to settle for what nature gave you. You can turn to an orthodontist who has 2 to 3 years of specialized education beyond dental school. Orthodontists focus on correcting crooked teeth, misaligned jaws, and dental irregularities. Make the most of what nature gave you. Visit an orthodontist for a lifetime of healthy, beautiful smiles. For more information, visit braces.org.